Chapter 9, the final chapter of Tractate Nazir, finishes going through the laws of the Nazarite vow. The first Mishnah says, Kuthians are not subject to the laws of the Nazir. Women and slaves are. Women can be stricter in this, as you can force a slave to take a Nazarite vow, but you can't force your wife. The Gemara cites and discusses the verses which source these points. It also cites verses which teach that non-Jewish individuals are not subject to the laws of impurity, and which verses exactly imply that they cannot take a Nazarite vow. It also goes through some points on the permissibility of them taking the vows to donate their worth to the temple. New Mishnah. The Nazarite vow of a slave could be stricter than that of a woman, as somebody can revoke his wife's vows, and it's a permanent revocation, but he can't revoke a slave's vows, and if he does, once the slave goes free, he completes his Nazarite term. The Gemara cites sources for these principles and the difference between the case of a slave's typical vow and his Nazarite vow. New Mishnah. If a slave becomes a Nazir and then ran away from his master, it's debated if he's allowed to drink wine. The Gemara suggests the debate is whether the owner gave up ownership of the slave, and whether this legally makes him a free man, or possibly they both agree with this principle, and they debate if the owner thinks the slave will return as to whether he'd permit him to continue drinking wine. New Mishnah. If a Nazir finishes his service and cuts his hair, and then finds out that he became impure, if it was from a known impurity, he must redo his term. If it was from an unknown impurity called impurity of the deep, he does not. For instance, if he swam in a cave and then found a corpse floating inside, he must restart his term. If the corpse was found sunken on the cave floor, if he went into the water to become cooled off, he's pure. If he had gone into the water to purify himself from a corpse impurity, he's now still impure, as it's an unknown source. So he's assumed to maintain whatever status he had when he entered the pool. The Gemara cites scriptural sources for these laws. It also further defines what exactly an unknown source of impurity is, and it says it's a tradition passed down from Mount Sinai. If further discusses these points. This is all explained further, additionally clarifying as to what exactly constitutes this unknown impurity. It's debated, and it's lengthily questioned, if something impure is sitting on top of something floating in the water, if the impure entity is considered itself to be floating in the water, which is relevant by many different laws, and it stands unresolved. It's also said that a Nazir, or somebody making the paschal offering, if they walked over an unknown grave on the 7th day of their purification, they're still considered to be pure, as this type of impurity is less powerful. The validity of this is debated. New Mishnah. If somebody finds a corpse in a place for the first time lying in a manner of a typical Jewish burial, he can remove it along with the dirt underneath it to relocate it. If he found 2 corpses, he can remove them with the dirt. If he found 3, if there's a separation between the first and third from 4 to 8 cubits, is considered to be a graveyard zone. So he must search from there outwards 20 cubits, and if he finds a grave at the end of the 20 cubits, he must search an additional 20 cubits. The further isolated cave can't be relocated, even though he would have been allowed to if he had found it first. The Gemara says the wording implies that excluded from these laws are a known grave, a sitting corpse, or if it's bent in half. Some even say an incomplete corpse, and the reason why is because, as they weren't buried according to the Jewish custom, they possibly aren't Jewish and shouldn't be reburied. It cites an incident of this occurring, and scriptural source for the point that you can take some of the underlying dirt along with approximate amounts as to how much. That's for the discussion. If no additional graves are found from the 20 cubit radius, it's considered to be a graveyard zone, as the land of Israel is considered to be pure. New Mishnah. If there's a doubt of somebody having tzara'as leprosy, if it's initially, he's pure, as long as he hasn't been confirmed to be impure. Once he's impure, if there's a doubt, he's considered to be impure still. The Gemara cites verses as sources for these points. New Mishnah. A zav, somebody with a type of impure emission, if he hadn't been confirmed to be a zava, he's checked through his food, drink, carrying loads, jumping, sickness, sight, and thought. If he is confirmed to be a ziva, he's not examined, and his emissions are considered to be impure. If somebody hit somebody, and the doctor said the man would die, but the man got better, and then he died, it's debated if the striker is liable for the death penalty. The Gemara states scriptural verses as sources for these points. The remainder of these laws in regards to impurity from types of emissions are further qualified. New Mishnah. The prophet Shmuel was a Nazir, according to some, based on a verse that uses similar wording by the Nazir Shimshon as by Shmuel also. The Gemara says a point that somebody who told somebody to recite their after blessing over a cup of wine, it debates if saying amen is preferable to saying the blessing itself. A source saying that saying the actual blessing is preferable. It ends by saying a verse which says that Torah scholars increase peace in the world. And that's the end of chapter 9 and the entire Tractate Nazir.